The air outside Columbia University that spring morning was electric with anticipation, defiance, and anxiety. Students in colorful hoodies, slogan-plastered t-shirts, and backpacks full of snacks, signs, and passion gathered near the campus gates. Their chants filled the New York sky. We want truth. We want change. No more silence. No more lies. At the heart of this protest was Aiden Walker, a 21-year-old political science student with piercing green eyes and a heart that beat for justice. Raised by a single mother in a small town in Ohio, Aiden knew the struggles of the working class. He had watched friends fall into debt, neighbors lose jobs, and his own mother work 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. The country he loved was bleeding, and he believed the current administration was pouring salt on the wounds. President Donald J. Trump, in his second non-consecutive term after a stunning political comeback, had just announced sweeping new reforms on immigration, student loan forgiveness reversals, and restrictions on certain campus protests. Aiden felt the government was stifling the very voice of youth, and he couldn't stay silent anymore. I don't care if they arrest me, Aiden told his roommate the night before. If I get a chance to speak, to really speak, not tweet, not post, but look him in the eye and say something real, I'll take it. And the opportunity came sooner than expected. The president had accepted an invitation to speak at the university as part of his American Renaissance tour, aimed at bridging gaps with the youth. Secret Service agents had swept the campus. Faculty had warned students to remain respectful. But when the day came, hundreds poured onto the lawns, flags waving, slogans chanted, voices rising. Inside the university's grand auditorium, a heavily guarded President Trump stood at the podium. Flanked by digital American flags and massive screens reading, "Reclaiming the Future," he began his speech. My fellow Americans, we are taking back our country from the radicals, from the cynics, from the corrupt. His voice boomed. Aiden was inside too. Thanks to his academic record, he'd received one of the few student guest passes to witness the event in person. Sitting in row 5, hands trembling, his heart pounded with a strange cocktail of fear and courage. Then came the moment. When President Trump paused to sip water, Aiden stood. "Mr. President," he shouted. Gasps. Cameras swiveled. Security stiffened. Trump froze, eyebrows raised. He motioned the guards to stop. "Let the boy speak," Trump said, waving off Secret Service. Aiden's voice cracked, then steadied. "Why are you taking away our future while calling it your legacy? You talk about greatness, but our debts grow, our rights shrink, and our voices are silenced." A ripple spread through the room. Whispers, phones recording, some clapping. The president didn't interrupt, his expression unreadable. Aiden went on, "We're not radicals. We're real people, drowning in debt, fear, and hopelessness. You say you want to make America great again. For who, sir? For billionaires? For politicians? Because it's not for us." A heavy silence fell. Even the protesters outside went quiet as the speech livestream broadcast the exchange on jumbo screens. Trump looked down at the podium for a moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. "Young man," he said, voice calm. "That was gutsy. I'll give you that." Aiden's jaw clenched, expecting a verbal slapdown. But instead, Trump continued, "Let's do something crazy. Why don't you come up here and talk to me? On stage. You've got your moment. Let's see what you've really got." The crowd gasped again. And in that instant, history was about to take an unexpected turn. For a few seconds, Aiden didn't move. His body was frozen by disbelief. Did the President of the United States, the man who had just been ranting about radicals and whiners, really just invite him on stage? The crowd's murmurs grew louder. Some cheered. Some booed. Secret Service agents looked confused, hesitant, unsure whether to intervene. Trump turned to the agents and said again, firmly, "Let him come up." Aiden finally stood tall and stepped into the aisle. His legs were shaking. The journey to the stage felt like miles as the cameras followed him. His every step broadcast live across the country. His phone buzzed wildly in his pocket. Friends texting him in real time. As he stepped onto the stage, Trump extended a hand. Aiden looked at it, then at the audience and finally shook it. Brief, firm, awkward. "You've got guts," Trump said into the mic. "Now say your piece. Everyone's watching." The crowd hushed. America leaned in. Aiden took a deep breath. I didn't come here to be famous. I came here because we're desperate. You say you're for the people, but we're the people and we're hurting. You cut student debt relief. You threaten to ban peaceful protests on campuses. You call us spoiled when we demand clean air, fair wages, and a shot at a future. Trump smirked slightly, arms crossed, watching like a coach analyzing a rookie player. Aiden continued, his voice now steadier. You say we're weak, that we're snowflakes. But do you know what it's like to work 2 jobs while studying full-time just to survive? Do you know what it's like to watch your parents cry because they can't afford insulin or rent? The auditorium fell into a heavy, emotional silence. I'm not asking for a handout, Aiden said. I'm asking for leadership that listens, not lectures. That understands, not mocks. That leads all Americans, not just the ones at the top. Trump stepped forward, still calm. You know, he began, his voice low and steady. I expected a loudmouthed activist. But you? You sound like a real person. I am a real person, Aiden replied quickly. Just like every kid out there in debt, every family without health care, every immigrant being told they don't belong. Trump nodded slowly. You've got fire. Reminds me of myself in a boardroom back in the 80s when no one believed I'd make it. Aiden narrowed his eyes. With all due respect, Mr. President, you weren't poor. You weren't powerless. You had golden parachutes. We've got student loans and dead-end jobs. There were murmurs of agreement in the crowd. Trump held up his hand. Fair. Fair point. But let me ask you something. What do you want me to do? Right here, right now, what would you change if you were in my shoes? Aiden paused. Everyone watched, holding their breath. I'd cancel student debt for good. I'd stop criminalizing peaceful protests. And I'd talk to the people, not at them, Aiden said. And maybe, just maybe, I'd listen when someone challenged me instead of calling them names. Trump took a long pause. Then he turned to the crowd, hands open. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just seen something rare in America today, someone actually saying what they believe without fear. I might not agree with all of it, but I respect it. Aiden blinked. What was happening? I want to make a deal, Trump continued. How about this? I'll meet with 10 students, your choice, to hear your concerns. Cameras off. Real talk. And if you're willing, Aiden, I want you in that room. The audience erupted, some in shock, some in applause, others shouting angrily. A protester outside fainted from surprise. Aiden was speechless. The moment he had imagined 100 times confronting the most powerful man in the country was turning into something more. Something dangerous and possibly revolutionary. Trump leaned closer, voice just above a whisper. Don't waste the moment, kid. You've got the country's attention. 3 days later, Aiden stood outside the Roosevelt Room of the White House, the same place where presidents had met generals, diplomats, and foreign leaders. But this time it was filled with students. 10 had been selected from universities across the country. There was Layla Ahmed, an environmental science major from UCLA, Marcus Green, a business student from Howard University, Jenna Cross, a journalism major from Michigan, and 7 others, each with their own story, struggle, and voice. Aiden, still in disbelief, had received the official call the night after the protest. The president wanted to hear more. Off camera. No script. No media. Just real talk. Now here they were. 10 students and 1 president, who entered the room with his signature confidence. A Diet Coke in hand, and an expression more serious than usual. All right, Trump began, taking a seat across from them. I've cleared my schedule. No staff, no media. This is your shot. Let's hear it. There was a beat of silence. Then Jenna spoke up. Why do you call us the woke mob? We're not a mob. We're just aware. Trump raised an eyebrow. Because some of the tactics, let's be honest, they look like mob behavior. Blocking roads. Canceling people. That's not awareness, that's intimidation. Marcus interjected. But what's more intimidating? A student protest or a government rolling back civil rights? Who really holds the power in this room, Mr. President? Trump didn't flinch. I do, and I'm choosing to use it by listening. That's more than most presidents have done in that chair. Layla leaned in. Then listen to this, we're terrified of the future. Climate change isn't coming. It's here. I watched my hometown in California burn last year. My dad's asthma nearly killed him. And still, we see rollbacks on environmental protections. Why? Trump turned to her. Because those protections often kill businesses. Regulations can strangle growth. And unchecked emissions will strangle all of us, Layla replied sharply. Aiden watched the exchange with growing awe. The energy in the room was intense, passionate, sometimes tense, but respectful. No yelling. No grandstanding. Just dialogue. Then it was his turn again. I don't expect you to change everything overnight, Aiden said. But if this is a democracy, it has to start with being heard. You gave us that. I won't pretend I understand your politics, but I respect the gesture. Now we need you to meet us halfway. Trump stared at him for a long moment. You know, I was going to blow off this meeting, he admitted. My team said it was a waste of time. But after what you did on stage, standing up and speaking your mind, I realized something. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. You're not snowflakes. You're pissed off patriots. That line hit differently. Everyone in the room went silent. Even Trump looked surprised by his own words. I may not agree with your demands, he continued, but I can't ignore the fact that you care. You give a damn about this country, and that's more than I can say for half the politicians in D.C. Layla smirked. That's the first thing we've agreed on. A few chuckles followed. Even Trump cracked a smile. Then he dropped the bombshell. I'm going to make an announcement next week, Trump said. A new presidential youth council. 5 students handpicked by you with monthly meetings at the White House. Your voice, not filtered through the press, not sanitized by political advisors, direct input on policies affecting your generation. The room exploded with disbelief. You're serious? Aiden asked, stunned. Dead serious, Trump said. But there's a catch. You'll have to face the backlash. From both sides. The left will call you sellouts. The right will say I'm pandering. Can you handle that? Aiden glanced around the room. Each student gave a nod, some slow, some fierce, but all resolute. We're used to pressure, Jenna said. We live in it. Trump stood, smoothing his tie. Then get ready, because the moment I make this public, the whole damn country is going to have something to say. The following Monday, President Trump stood at the White House podium. The media buzzed like a beehive. Rumors had swirled all weekend, something about students, a council, an unprecedented shift. Trump began with his usual swagger. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not here today to tweet. I'm here to do something Washington rarely does, listen. Gasps and murmurs spread across the press pool. I've met with 10 students who challenged me to my face. And instead of yelling back, I did something radical, he said, pausing for effect. I listened. And they had things worth hearing. He announced the creation of the Presidential Youth Council, 5 college students from across the political spectrum, nominated by their peers to advise the administration on student debt, climate policy, education reform, and civil liberties. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. News outlets scrambled to break the story. Within minutes, hashtags like hashtag Trump Youth Council, hashtag Aiden Speaks, and hashtag Listen to Us were trending worldwide. CNN called it a rare moment of presidential humility. Fox News asked, is Trump playing 4D chess again? MSNBC speculated it was an election year stunt, but even they couldn't deny the seismic impact. Social media went into a frenzy. Some hailed it as revolutionary. Finally, a seat at the table for Gen Z. Others were skeptical. Don't fall for it. It's optics. And then there were the attacks. Aiden sold out. Trump's using him. Aiden watched the coverage from his campus dorm room with a knot in his stomach. His inbox exploded. Invitations to speak at conferences. Hate mail. Death threats. Scholarship offers. Requests for interviews from The Daily Show, 60 Minutes, even Oprah's team. He wasn't just a student anymore. He was the face of a national moment. Late that night, he received a call from someone unexpected, First Lady Melania Trump. Aiden, she said gently, I know what it's like to be misunderstood when you're close to power. Just remember, stay true to yourself. That's all that matters. It was cryptic but comforting. The next day, the 5 members of the Youth Council were revealed. Alongside Aiden were Layla Ahmed, environmental advocate; Marcus Green, social entrepreneur; Jenna Cross, freedom of speech activist; Tristan Lee, a conservative voice from Texas A&M. Each came with a mission. Each brought controversy. Their first task, deliver a set of actionable recommendations within 60 days or the council would be disbanded. Aiden dove in headfirst, coordinating virtual town halls with students from every corner of the country, rural towns, inner cities, tribal colleges, military academies. He stayed up late poring over data, speaking with policy experts, even debating with White House economists. But the deeper he got, the more he realized the truth. Real change was slower than protests. Inside the council, disagreements flared. Tristan Lee pushed for charter school expansion. Layla fought tooth and nail for aggressive climate measures. Marcus wanted a student entrepreneur fund. Jenna lobbied for digital privacy laws. Aiden often played mediator, trying to keep the group united. "We have to present a united front," he pleaded in one late-night video call. "If we fracture, the administration will ignore us. We're not just students now, we're symbols. Don't forget that." Meanwhile, critics kept piling on. Progressive groups called them puppets. A right-wing radio host dubbed them the woke White House circus. A member of Congress even introduced a bill to defund the council. Through it all, Trump kept his distance. Until one night, he summoned Aiden alone. They met in the Oval Office. It was quiet, almost eerie. Just the two of them and a fireplace. "You holding up?" Trump asked. Aiden nodded. "Trying." Trump looked tired for once. The weight of leadership sat heavier than usual. "You know, when I brought you on stage that night," Trump said, "I didn't know why. I just had a gut feeling. You weren't like the others." Aiden frowned. "What others?" "The ones who scream but don't listen. You did both." Trump leaned in, voice lower. "There's one thing this town fears more than protests, Aiden. Conversations. Real ones. You've started something dangerous. Don't stop." And just like that, he walked out of the room, leaving Aiden alone with the crackle of the fire and the weight of a movement that was no longer just his. 60 days came and went. In that time, the Presidential Youth Council had debated, drafted, and finally delivered their proposals. A 47-page policy paper titled Voices of the Future sat on the president's desk. It included reforms to federal student loans, funding for climate tech research in universities, and recommendations on balancing free speech with digital safety on campuses. And now it was time to face the nation. Aiden stood behind the podium in the East Room of the White House, the same room where major bills were signed and historic treaties declared. Today, however, it wasn't a president who would speak first, it was a student. Trump stood behind him silently, allowing Aiden the spotlight. Aiden looked out into the crowd. Senators, journalists, cabinet members, his parents, protesters outside, supporters, skeptics, enemies, friends, and a generation watching from dorm rooms and classrooms across the country. He took a deep breath. 2 months ago, I stood on a protest stage and confronted the most powerful man in the country. I didn't expect him to listen. And to be honest, I didn't care if he did. But he did. And now, because of that one moment, I'm standing here not as a protester, but as a participant in shaping the policies that define my generation. Cameras clicked. Trump watched intently, arms folded, lips tight. "I know what some of you are thinking. I sold out. I joined the system." Maybe you're right. But if the system only changes from the outside, then it will never change at all. We have to confront power. Yes. But we also have to challenge it from within. That's what this council did. We disagreed. We fought. We lost sleep. But we also listened to each other, to experts, and to the students we represent. We don't expect every recommendation to be accepted. We don't expect overnight transformation. But we do expect one thing, that this door stays open. He looked directly at Trump. "You gave us that door, Mr. President. I ask, no, I dare every future leader to do the same." The room erupted in applause. Not unanimous, but genuine. Even some of Trump's staunchest critics nodded with a glimmer of admiration. Trump stepped forward next, shaking Aiden's hand. The cameras captured the moment. The same student who had once interrupted him at a rally now sharing the stage in unity. When it was Trump's turn to speak, he kept it short. "This generation is loud, sometimes annoying, but always honest. And that honesty is what this country needs more of. I don't agree with everything in their report. Some of it I flat out hate. But I respect it, because it comes from a place I can't ignore anymore. Patriotism doesn't always wear a flag pin. Sometimes, it holds a protest sign." Those final words shocked everyone. They weren't tweeted. They weren't shouted. They were spoken. And they landed like thunder. Epilogue echoes beyond. The Voices of the Future initiative didn't pass in full, but several components were implemented. A student loan forgiveness program for rural teachers and social workers. A $2 billion federal fund for green innovation grants at public universities. A bipartisan bill on campus speech rights based on Jenna's framework. Aiden returned to his university no longer anonymous. He received an honorary degree, was invited to the UN Youth Summit, and even turned down a book deal. Not yet, he said. The story's still being written. The Youth Council continued meeting even after Trump's term ended, now considered a bipartisan legacy program preserved by executive order. And future administrations, Republican and Democrat, kept it alive, unwilling to risk backlash by shutting it down. 1 year later, in an interview with 60 Minutes, Aiden was asked, "What changed more, you or the president?" He smiled. "Both. But more importantly, we changed the story America tells about its youth."